So, I think we're back in the room. Um, Welcome everybody. Welcome to the live viewers of this broadcast, and also those who will be watching the recordings. Thank you to the sponsors of the Blue Room today. So, Owl Marketplace, JB Stays, and ISAAP. Thank you to them. Thank you to our wonderful panel who've agreed to discuss accreditation. Today we're discussing quality and comfort. So we'll go through some of the packages, a couple of the packages, just to explain the options of accreditation, or for North American viewers, certification. The certification. If we maybe go around the panel at this stage, and they can tell you about their own companies for a couple of minutes, and then we will end that with Steve talking a little bit more about ISAAP. So Evelyn, if I could turn to you first, please.
Okay, thank you, Richard. I'm Evelyn Harron. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Prem Group UK and Premier Suites, which is our extended stay brand. We operate across three divisions, I should say: Ireland, UK, and Continental Europe. And in Continental Europe, we're predominantly in the Netherlands and Belgium. We operate hotels and service departments, but our main focus now is on our service department extended stay product, which is Premier Suites. And we have 15 properties across Ireland, UK, and Continental Europe. We have 10 properties in the UK. We got established in the UK in 2001. And our most recent property in Edinburgh, which is 81 apartments, has just opened last year. I've been involved with ASAP down through the years and on the board of ASAP and chair of ASAP as well. So very, very familiar with the extended stay product, which I think is a fantastic product and market to be in. Thank you, Richard.
Thanks, Evelyn. Thank you. I'll go around in gallery order, if I may, everybody. So, Steve, if I could ask you next, please.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Steve Lowy, CEO of the Residence Apartments. We operate 76 luxury apartments in central London and 5 locations. We also have a student division where we operate 275 apartments across London as well. And we have a full academic offering. So we have faculty in classrooms and deal mainly with American universities over in the UK. Like with Evelyn, I also am involved with ASAP. I'm the current chair and have been in that post for almost 2 years. And my background is hotels and restaurants. So accreditation, particularly in the hotels, was really important when I was setting up the hotel brand I created in the late 2007, 2008 to get us recognized, basically. So yeah, well aware of that, and also have a lot of accreditation requirements around the academics of what we do. So it's not actually dissimilar to some of the stuff in corporate service apartments with regards to health and safety and so forth. Yeah, that's me.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you. For those viewers, by the way, who aren't as familiar with ASAP, I'm not too sure. That's the Association of Service Department Providers, ASAP. Michelle, if I could ask you, please.
Sure, thank you. I've been in corporate housing for a long time. Since 1998, I decided to dive into what we call the Wild Wild West, because here in Canada, corporate housing was really a baby. There really wasn't any semblance, there wasn't any organization. So I decided, why not? Let's get into corporate housing. What I found here in Canada was there was no standards. There was no anything. So I set out to develop a company with standards. But again, I was kind of a standalone individual. I did work for a very large corporation at the time, developed a company for them. After a few years, decided that it was time to venture out on my own. Our properties are predominantly in the Toronto area, which is Canada's largest city, and decided, okay, let's start my company, Today Living Group. Now, we started Today Living Group kind of backwards. So we wanted to get properties, but we wanted to find out, very similar, this is why ISAAP was a beautiful marriage for us. We wanted to develop something, not an unfurnished suite with furniture in it, but how do we create an excellent guest experience? So putting ourselves as guests, what does a guest experience, what do they want? So we did little things that became very large things that became part of what we're known for right now. And that is, the guests will never know everything we've done to make their stay perfect. One of our checks and balances we do is our guest services team. So when we put together an entire suite, we check somebody in, and we have housekeeping that goes in on an ongoing basis. Every time a guest has to call us for something that has either broken or perhaps we've overlooked, to us that costs us money, not only in labor, but also it could cost you a relationship with your client. So how do you create a company to make sure that that is as minimal as possible? And that's how Today Living Group was born. And that's what we do. As far as accreditation, we encourage accreditation in our industry because there isn't enough of it. And in order for us to build businesses, large business relationships, we need to not only promote corporate housing, but also elevate the standards of corporate housing. So we have a few different certifications that are very important. A certified diversified supplier, we are, as well as a member of CHPA as well, and accredited.
Wonderful. Thanks, Michelle. Thank you. Ali, you please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ali Watts. I'm the founder and director of 20 The Barons Luxury Apartments. We are a small provider, and when I say small, I mean very small. We have 10 units in southwest London and Richmond. We've been going for about 12 years now. And about 5 years ago, in fact, we decided that we needed to find a very sound and reliable way of differentiating us from other small providers and other providers in a large marketplace. We have a very small voice, so we decided that we needed to shout about the sort of luxury niche element of ourselves. And that came across, the best option with us was to go with ISAAP, who we've been with now for 5 years. We used to have a lot of corporate business. That was probably 80%. That's over the last couple of years, that's dwindled a little bit. It's kind of plateaued. We now work a lot in with the film world, which has, since the writers' strike has finished, it's taking off again in the UK and particularly southwest London. So that's our main market at the moment. But over the last 12 years, our market has changed. We've had highs and lows, influenced obviously by politics, COVID, and what's going on in the corporate and film sector. So that's our story, really. We are very small, and we needed a way to stand out from the crowd, and that's why we're here shouting about ISAAP. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Charlie. Thank you. Last, by no means least, Stephen Martin of ISAAP. To kind of, I think, set the scene, talk about the topic specifically that we're talking about now. Steve, over to you.
Thank you, Richard. Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Stephen Martin. I'm the CEO, owner of ISAAP. Just a quick word about our panel today. For those viewing this, the panel, as you've heard, actually comprises quite a variation in types of serviced accommodation corporate housing operators. We have from the small and beautiful to the large, and I can't think of a word to describe large, but we have both ends of the scale here, and a number of countries covered, and that really reflects ISAAP's privileged position currently to really be operating in a global way. So about 8 years ago, I was thrown the opportunity to develop ISAAP. It does sound very similar to ASAP, and I have to sort of apologize for that. But the reason is because ISAAP was actually born of ASAP back in 2015. So we needed a name for it, and ISAAP, it actually means something, International Serviced Accommodation Accreditation Process. That's why we just say ISAAP. And we have, I've grown it from a starting point to today, where we can proudly say that we have ISAAP certified and accredited providers of corporate housing and serviced accommodation in 21 countries across 4 continents. We are the specialist provider of accreditation schemes for the serviced accommodation and corporate housing sector of the hospitality industry. So we don't mess around with anything outside of that sector. So we focus purely on clients within that. So this broadcast today is to talk about why what we do and what we offer, accreditation and certification, is important. And we say accreditation and certification, as Richard touched on, because in Europe, we talk accreditation. Other parts of the world, we talk certification, certainly in North America. So I will often say both, just so that I'm not leaving anybody out. So it's important, we think. That's why we're in business, and we're trying to help companies in this sector to further professionalize themselves, their offerings, and to position themselves better in front of corporate clients. That's our main stream of activity. So why is it important to have an ISAAP accreditation or certification? I'm going to answer that in 3 areas, really. I'm going to talk about the internal considerations that a company will make, the external impacts that are there and considerations that they should make as a result of that. And also, I'm going to talk about the detail that goes behind the certification that we're talking about today, which is quality and comfort certification. And this one is the softer approach, if you like. 3 weeks ago, we ran the first Blue Room and we talked about compliance accreditation or safety and security, which is very much a black and white situation. A company will either pass or fail. The criteria are either yes or no. Whereas with quality and comfort, it's degrees of success that we're assessing against. And so companies that engage in the process, unless we find some real horrors, which is very, very unusual, will succeed in obtaining a certification award. But they'll vary in terms of the scores that they can achieve. And as we go through year on year, we work together to try to increase those scores and therefore provide a better guest experience, which is the overriding reason for doing all of this. So I mentioned I was going to go into 3 ways, and so I don't veer off onto a tangent. I'm going to start by talking about the internal considerations as to why a company would wish to participate in certification. So quality and comfort certification. The first one that comes to mind is to differentiate from the competition. Of course, if you've got some form of recognition of your product quality, then that stands you above the others. It helps, as I've mentioned, to further professionalize the external face of the company by having awards and certifications and accreditations. Companies gain credibility. It allows a company to professionalize internally. It raises the bar and encourages employee and associates to benefit from additional training and development. It creates quality and depth, and it helps them all to develop. So if you've got a company that's operating at a higher standard internally, the chances are that your product, your customer-facing image will be better. It increases the chances of gaining new business. It increases the chances of retaining existing business. And it enhances the company's position and credibility in the industry sector. So those are pretty good reasons why a company should consider that it should enter into an accreditation or certification. Also, there are external factors. The main one that I want to talk about is in connection with ISO 31030, which doesn't roll off the tongue, I get that, but it is a number and it's meaningful. ISO 31030 is the travel risk management standard, and it was launched in September of 2021. There are a lot of details, but I'm going to try and summarize it the best I can and simply, and that is that this list of requirements will result in corporates and travel management companies behaving differently when selecting serviced accommodation. They will need to know that the serviced accommodation they select has been independently and externally verified as meeting certain standards, so as to allow the corporates to demonstrate that they have carried out a due diligence activity which protects the well-being of their employees when they travel on business, whether it be within a country, just to a different city, or whether it be international travel. So we're focused on the accommodation part of that ISO, and the employee well-being is a big chunk. 3 weeks ago, we talked about how the safety and security side of that was involved, but this is equally as important. It's the well-being of the employee, and they will be considering elements such as space of the accommodation, privacy, a work from home capability, the quality of the furnishings and fittings, the comfort of the furniture, the aesthetics, so for example, the decor, the accommodation facilities, so where, for example, in North America, you have a lot of amenities such as gyms and spas and business centers and barbecue areas, the local environment, and the overall impact on the guest experience. So this is where serviced accommodation scores over hotels, because serviced accommodation can provide a better environment for an employee who's on business travel to live and work successfully. So the well-being falls exactly and completely into our quality and comfort certification criteria.
Steve, could I just ask, or at least if you kind of make a mental note of where you are so far in what, because I don't believe a word you're saying. I would like to ask the panel why they so we've heard if you finish some of your what you were going to say about the accreditation, but I'd love to hear at this stage from the panel about why they have chosen to have ISAAP accreditation certification. Is there anything in particular that you were going to say that might influence what they say?
I believe I've said it. I've given the reasons why internally they would consider taking a certification, and I'm talking currently about why the external factors would lead them to make that decision. And it's predominantly the ISO that governs how corporates are going to behave, and will lead to them having to select accredited and certified providers of accommodation.
Yeah, so that might be good if we come back to specifically to those external factors. So ISO 31030, that people understand how you as ISAAP are aligning with something that's coming down the tracks. That would be good. In terms of the internal factors, if I may ask the panel, why you have chosen in a world where operators might be questioning the reasons why they would need accreditation certification. Why in particular did you decide to become accredited? If I could go the same route, please, Evelyn, first of all.
Yeah, absolutely, Richard. Well, first of all, we've been going through the accreditation process with ISAAP for the last, I thought it was 10 years, could be 8 years. So we're obviously very familiar with the ISAAP accreditation process. And, you know, for doing it that long, we obviously find it very beneficial to us. We actually get the whole building accreditation, which includes the compliance and the quality accreditation. But I know we're just talking about quality and comfort here, but I feel the building accreditation gives me the assurances across our 15 properties across the whole brand that we are looking after the guests, that we're doing everything we can to be number one in the market we're in. In the past, like we were established in 1996 as a company, and in 2001 we opened our first property in the UK. We actually went with other accreditation in hospitality, which were more hotel based, and we just felt they weren't suitable for what service departments are. Service departments are very different to hotels. And when we actually went the ISAAP route, we found it actually ticked the boxes for us in terms of the apartment, the whole guest journey, the kitchen, the bedroom, the bathroom, everything you get in a service department. It's a very simple process. You know, the assessor comes and they stay overnight with us. They assess the whole guest journey from exterior to check-in to everything they find in the apartment, in the facilities. And then the next day they look at a percentage of the apartments. I think for, you know, our GMs in each of the properties find it a very useful process, not only from competition and sales, but for internally, because it's an external pair of eyes which comes in and assesses what we do. It also helps us to benchmark across the brand, so we see what each location, each property is getting in terms of scores and where they're falling down in terms of scores. And it just gives us the assurances as an external pair of eyes that we're doing everything we can do. What do we need to improve? It helps us in terms of our CapEx spend, Richard. You know, the assessor will tell us where they feel that we need to maybe look at putting money into the product, and that helps us plan our CapEx as well. But there's no doubt, as Steve said, it gives us a mark above the competition. And I firmly believe that. And it also gives us a mark with the sales. You know, the RFPs now are asking, what accreditation do you have? What external accreditation? And I feel it's very beneficial for us as a brand across all our divisions. And the other thing to say is, you know, we've got 4 different countries that we do it in. We've Ireland, UK, Netherlands, and Belgium. So it lends itself to all the different countries, which a lot of other accreditation don't do.
Brilliant point. Actually, yeah, we'll come back onto that one, the global aspect of it, but yeah, and then all those other points as well. Thanks, Evelyn. Thank you. Steve, over to you, please.
Yeah, we decided when we opened our first building 6 years ago that we needed it really to just make sure we were relevant, we were doing the right things, but also we found that some of the booking agents required us to have, particularly as a new provider, have that accreditation. So as we've grown, we use it obviously partly from a marketing perspective, but also internal standards to have, you know, like in the hotels used to have the mystery sleeper. Now it's not so mysterious with accreditation because you have to put people in, but it's having that external view, and that's really helpful from the health and safety and the guts of what we do. Because of the nature of the student side of what we have, we're actually very on top of all of that side of it. But in terms of standards and everything else, people miss things. If you see the same thing all the time, you don't necessarily sometimes notice some things, and it's really good to have it. It was quite interesting internally because when I became CEO and when I founded the residence, we had never really done the accreditation apart from health and safety. So no one really likes criticism in reality, and you know, it's a critique of what you do, rightly or wrongly. So now it's part of our annual thing that we do. But as I said, we have to do it for academics and they're a bit scarier than Stephen and his guys. But that is a full day of interviews with students, with faculty, with me, going through all of our documents, and so it's building into our process. And again, one of our directors was always quite scared of that accreditation, but actually we use it as a really good benchmark of what we've done in the last year. In the last 3 years, we've got the top grades we could possibly get, and that's really helped us actually, because when US universities are looking for academic partners, you can see on the public register of who's done what, and that's been really helpful. So that's why we chose it. That's why we continue to do it. So part marketing, part sort of self-improvement, and we like the fact that it's evolved in terms of the criteria to include different things, rather than what happened with hotel star ratings, where it was very stuck in its ways for decades and decades, and hadn't matched up to modern operations.
Fantastic. Thanks, Steve. Thank you. I realise, by the way, that as we go around the gallery, it's going to become increasingly difficult to perhaps say different things, but perhaps, or hopefully, there will be different aspects of the same topic. So in terms of either the size of the company or geographical location. So Michelle, over to you, please.
I echo everything that Evelyn and Steve have said. Here in North America, for the most part, our corporate housing, that's what we term it as, does not exist in entire buildings. We have units within buildings, i.e. in Canada, it's predominantly condominiums. So we have our flagship property. There's over 800 units in the two towers, and we have a good percentage of units in there, but we don't have the whole building. So we don't have control over the whole building. And I've had people say to me, oh, why do you get accredited? They're going to ask you about building and everything else. And that's not the case anymore. We love it for a couple of reasons. One, sales, of course, we're all looking for more sales, validation on what we do, how we do it. Good example is the very first time that we had the accreditation done, my whole team knew. Everybody knew, everybody was making sure everything was perfect, as it should always be. But of course, you shine the penny. The second time, I didn't do it. I didn't tell a soul. We told no one. They had no idea why one suite was blocked off. They thought I put it on off-market repairs. Nobody knew about it, including guest services. Again, I just said, don't ask questions. I wanted to see if we were as good as we thought we were. So we used it as a training, everything from housekeeping to guest services to every single thing that was in there. And we still scored well, but it was great for us to be able to find out what was the real guest experience. What are we really like? Not just when you feel, not when you're preparing for something very special. And that's how we built it up from there. And it was great. We learned a lot. I have to admit, there were some differences between, across the pond and, some of the standards we have. So there was a learning process, which I know that Stephen has really elevated. And we not only supported it before, but we support it even more now because it has evolved into what corporate housing is today. I have to admit, as recent as yesterday, we have a potential new client, and one of the first questions they did ask was, what are your certifications? And we were very proud to be able to list the certifications that we do have. And they were actually from the UK and delighted that we had certification, the way we do and our standards. And after he did the tours, again, he echoed that, everything that we were marketing was in fact what he was seeing. So it was that guest experience, and they were very cautious, shall we say, during our meetings yesterday and tours. But by the end of it, the guard was down, and I have to say that the accreditation, third-party accreditation, helped us immensely. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thanks, Michelle. Thank you. Ali, to you, please.
Well, everybody said it particularly, I think, but as I said at the beginning, we are a really small provider, and we had tried previous accreditation services before, thinking that that would kind of keep us on, keeping us on a path towards keeping us current, keeping us up with the latest trends, but more importantly, the safety. And safety was what drew us in initially, actually. I know we're not talking about that here, this is the quality and comfort, but we kind of came in on the safety and health that Steve's original offering gave us. But we then realized that for us, quality and comfort was really important as well, because we had sort of put ourselves as a kind of top end elite apartment, and we needed to actually back that up. And I think we probably went in a little bit blind early on, and we found that the service that we got with ISAAP allowed us to grow and to keep current with the latest developments, which as a small company, we were probably not as on top of the game as we should have been. And like Michelle was saying, we kind of thought we really thought we were at the top of our game. And possibly the first assessment we had, I came away feeling a little bit kind of dented by the experience, because what it was a learning experience, but you know, we all have ego, and I thought we'd got it nailed, but there were things we needed to improve on. And it was a really good learning experience for me, but also I then passed that down to my team, and it's now become a really good in-house annual event for we're doing housekeeping, but not just housekeeping in the literal sense of housekeeping, as in keeping everything where it should be and fully stocked and really good quality. But we can check that every member of the team is doing what they should be doing, and where the problems might lie and how to fix them, because there's quite a strong degree of we found a lot of hand-holding from ISAAP. I initially thought that we were just going to be kind of given this information and then left to process it ourselves, but actually it was very good for us, and I could talk to Steve about where he thought I needed to improve in certain areas, and if I needed focus on how to actually do that, that was also there. So compared with other accreditation services, it was much more thorough. Obviously, there's the overnight stay, which it's very, very difficult to hide faults when somebody's staying overnight. If your bed isn't comfy and the blackout curtains aren't blackout, and you haven't got the right number of place settings, and your sofa is really uncomfortable, then that is going to be blaringly obvious. Whereas for a cursory glance, which is what some of the other services we'd used had offered, it's very easy to paper over any cracks. So we felt that we needed that really quite hard-hitting, sometimes difficult to cope with criticism. And it's not just criticism, obviously, but we need to look at all of our processes and our systems and the way we operate. And it's been really good. It's been a learning experience. And I think I'm quite confident that it's kept us at the top of our particular niche. That's
Perfect.
it.
Thanks. Thank you, Ali. Perfect. What I'd like to do now, before I hand back to Steve, and then continuing either making comments on what the panel have just commented, or continuing with then the ISO 3130, if I may just introduce a gentleman who I know quite well, Mohammed, from TGA, the global apartments, a large booking agency in India, and you'll be hearing a lot more from TGA in the future. But Mohammed writes there, with growing concerns of global warming, our corporate clients talking to have collaboration with service departments who think the point of view of global sustainability, along with comfort and convenience, it's good to have a useful selling point, and selling the apartments which have been accredited is of great benefit to TGA and to Mohammed. He also comments on Steve's talk. Accreditation does bring reliability and recognition. It's more a satisfaction of having that standard and what your clients are looking for. And there was another comment from Mohammed, which I will try to find. Thank you for that, Mohammed. Thank you for that. So, TGA, that's the Global Apartments. If I hand back to you, though, Steve, at this point, and to take the conversation forward, commenting on the panel or on ISO 3130, if that's okay.
Yep. Thanks very much, Richard. Yeah, nice comments there from Mohammed. So we'll stay in touch, hopefully. Thank you to the panel for their very positive comments, even comments about lumpy sofas. It was a bit lumpy, to be fair, but thanks for coming clean about that one in public. So this process, most of the panel have touched on how it works. I was going to give a brief description for those on the call, on the broadcast, who are not aware of how it actually works in practice. I'll do it very briefly. And that is, yes, there's an overnight stay by an assessor. It's not a mystery. It's all prearranged. You know when the assessor is coming. The number of nights of stay will depend upon how many units you operate in what locations. So it's all proportionalized. While the assessor is there, a full guest experience assessment will be carried out based in the apartment that's been allocated for the overnight stay. The assessor will consider somewhere in the region of 250 different elements while they're going through that process. The next day, as Evelyn pointed out, there is a proportional viewing of other apartment units provided by that operator, the end of which there is a score generated. Everything is out of 5. So score out of 5 is awarded. And then what happens after that? So lots of companies possibly are guilty of going through this and thinking that that's it. They get their badge and that's done. But actually, if a company doesn't use that in a promotional way and tell their customers, tell anyone who will listen that they've actually achieved a third-party externally administered certification, they have to do that, because that's where the benefit comes. So display it on websites, display it on email footers, marketing literature. As I say, tell everyone that would be interested and would be relevant to know. And that is very often we find that doesn't happen. So what we do upon awarding of a certification, quality and comfort, is that we promote the achievement via social media. We advise relevant trade associations such as the Association of Service Apartment Providers, ISAAP, and the CHPA, Corporate Housing Providers Associations. We advise the agents that we work with, and they will update their listings, and then the providers who have certifications will receive preferential treatment, preferential listing. We list it on our own website. And we offer to work with your company, the company that's going through the accreditation or certification. We'll work with you to find the best way to let everybody know that you've done this, and this is what it means. This is what it means for your clients. This is why they can use your company with confidence. So having heard all that, the reasons why you should do it, why would any serviced accommodation provider not consider taking the next step and engaging with ISAAP in one of these processes? Back to you, Richard.
Thanks, Steve. Sorry, you caught me on mute there. Yeah, thank you. So just listening to everybody, I mean, what I've been writing down as the main points, in a way, although how can you summarize something that's quite thorough, really, is it offers differentiation, so for allowing marketing. It allows you to assess your own internal standards when it's very easy on a day-to-day basis, perhaps just to simply go about your work. So it puts the focus back on what you are doing and reminds you then of the real experiences of the guests. It's global, which is something that we is really really good, because it offers a uniform kind of assessment, and is important for the RFPs and the agencies, the TMCs, the RMCs, in order that they can, so travel management companies, relocation management companies, that is, in order that they can satisfy their own corporate clients and clients in general, really. It in a way that Mohammed was talking about, I think, and I'll post a comment in a minute that he's made there. But we can see almost from the horse's mouth how important it is for the agencies to see those standards being assessed by the operators. You mentioned Corporate Housing Providers Association, Chipper. I think a couple of people have mentioned that, and I think I'm aware that there is a degree, that there is a certain accreditation, but correct me if I'm wrong, that they offer. So Steve, or anyone else that wants to talk about that, please, if you could, to talk about that a little bit, just so we can clarify whether they are the same or different.
The best person to answer that actually is Michelle, because Michelle sits on the executive board of CHPA. But before I unleash her, I'll just do a quick summary of how I understand the difference to be. Yes, it's true that the CHPA has its own accreditations. These, and Michelle is going to correct me if I get this one little bit wrong, I know that, but the accreditations that the CHPA run are about the business. It's about being a bona fide business, whereas our certifications are about the product quality, the thing that your client buys. And so what we're doing is validating the standard of the product offering, and it can be compared against the product offering of other companies, and of course against those that don't have any validation of product offering. So I think there is a distinct difference between what the CHPA does of its own internal accreditation and what ISAAP does. And now I'm prepared to be shot down in flames by Michelle.
You're not shot down in flames. You're correct 100%. So CHPA has a certification that we encourage all members, obviously, to apply for. Not everyone gets it. It is a certification that is business-based, and it's quite detailed, it's quite in-depth, and again, like I said, it's not everyone can qualify. It's not as if, oh, you pay a membership and away you go, like different. But again, it's a business qualification, and what Stephen is discussing is 100% correct. That's about the individual product. They are two very distinct, different, but amazing tools.
Thank you. Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, perfect. So the two different tools that are complementary then, presumably, as well.
Yes.
Something, Mohammed's comment there, 800 properties in North America. So he would like to get in touch with you, Michelle, to discuss that one. And I know that from a previous, from a previous comment that Mohammed is also working with Premier Suites. Yeah, so that's useful to know. The packages, by the way, because we had about a month or so ago, 3 weeks ago, we had a discussion on accreditation. And just to clarify to people viewing, that was about safety and security. That was a compliance package, for want of a better expression. Safety and security accreditation compliance. That's known in North America as base 2. We're now talking about quality and comfort accreditation, quality and comfort, and that is known in North America as base 1. Quality and comfort accreditation / base 1, and correct me if I'm wrong, shoot me down in flames. It's possible that requires a personal visit. Safety and security / base 2 can be done remotely. I don't know how much in detail we want to go into that, because I'm just looking at the time with 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
But
shall I just clarify that? So yes, in Europe, there is there's the quality and comfort certification, which requires physical visits. That's what we've been discussing today. In addition to that, there's compliance accreditation, which is the safety and security process, which is remote. In North America, we do it slightly differently. Yes, we've got a different name for it. It's called North American Corporate Housing Certification. Base 1 is quality and comfort. Base 2 is safety and security. And so how we run it there is that you cannot do base 2 unless you engage in base 1, because what we've made it is a module that bolts on to the base 1 process. So how that works in practice is that the assessor, while on site carrying out the quality and comfort / base 1 process, will be able to simultaneously cover off the base 2 requirements together with some work that the provider will need to do, and will need to give some documentation and stuff. But essentially, there's a difference there in that base 2 in North America cannot be purchased as a standalone. It relies on being carried out on the back of base 1. Hopefully that's explained it.
Right, thank you. I should say, if anybody has any further questions once you've seen this recording or live, please do contact Steve at ISAAP, and there are the contact details, or contact me, and I can put you in contact with Steve. Okay, we're slowly drawing towards the end, and there's probably more questions than answers as the song goes, for those that can remember it. It was a long time ago. I'd like to point out, just like to make it clear to the viewers as well, that it sounds so, accreditation sounds so official. It is a guide. It's holding your hand to help you to achieve the standards that you would want to achieve for your guests, and it can take as long as it takes, but Steve is there to hold your hand as such, to guide you through the process. At this stage, perhaps I'd like to ask, no, in fact, would you like to give an idea, Steve, quite briefly, because again, we're running short of time, but on the length of time that it takes for accreditation and the pricing, which I know will not be specific? Yeah.
Okay. That's a tough one. That's a double-barreled question, and the answers are going to be tough. Okay. So the length, so how long it takes, the process, it's variable. If so, quality and comfort certification. Once a provider has decided that they want to engage, and once the messy business of the financial stuff is done and dusted, then we agree suitable dates for the site visits to take place with the customer, and the assessor will then arrive, carry out the overnight assessments, as I explained, and then it depends on how many days of activity that are required with that provider, according to how many units they have in how many locations. But let's just say it's one that requires 1 day of activity. So upon completion of the overnight stay and the further unit viewings the following day, The assessor disappears, and the reports will be delivered within 7 days from the visit. And all being well, that means that once the peer review of the work has been carried out by ISAAP internally, the awarding of the certification can happen, and the confirmation goes out by email with the logos and with what to do with the logos and all of the help that we offer. So from the point of the visit, it's as quick as a week in most cases that certification can be realized, and that provider can start promoting their achievement. What takes longer is making the decision to do it in the first place, understanding the costs, agreeing the costs, paying the invoice, and then the rest of it falls into place. As long as there's a date that can be agreed within a reasonable time frame, it can be, let me put a stab on this, a month. It can happen in a month if all parties are of the same mind to achieve it that quickly. So from the moment of deciding to do it to the moment of receiving your confirmation and your logos, 1 month. In terms of cost, it varies according to country, but it will be from somewhere in the region of £800 UK at the lower end to do quality and comfort. And if you're a category 5 provider, so if that requires 5 days of activity because you have more over 500 or between 500 and 1,000 or over 1,000 units, then it can be up to £5,000. It really depends on the size of your organization. So hopefully I've managed to answer both of your nasty questions reasonably simply. Yeah,
we don't promise an easy ride. So, and Mohammed actually has a question here. So asking, is ISAAP accreditation restricted to regions, or can it also be extended to global apartments?
Okay, so there are no restrictions. ISAAP will be able to operate in any country, I guess within reason, as long as it's not a war zone. I probably wouldn't want to send an assessor to a war zone. But in theory, there are no restrictions. I think probably the angle of the question, if I may be so bold as to guess, is, and the answer would be, we do it per country. So you get an award. So a quality and comfort certification is valid per country. So for example, Premier Suites have quality and comfort certification wrapped into their building accreditations for the UK, for Ireland, for the Netherlands, and for Belgium. So however many countries your company operates in would be the number of countries and therefore the number of processes that we would need to administer. We would need to carry out processes in each country. I think that was the question I'm being asked. Mohammed, if that doesn't answer it, then please come back with try me again.
Yeah, I think that was. So yeah, we're coming to the end. I would like to thank everybody. Actually, before I do that, could we run around the panel quickly with any final thoughts or anything? Is there anything else that you would like to add to the discussion so far? If I may start with you, please, Evelyn.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. It's been a very interesting discussion, and I think everybody kind of echoes what I've been thinking about the accreditation program. I think the main thing is it can only be what you make of it. So it's what you get out of it from an internal, in terms of your brand benchmarking, in terms of making sure you're using it to constantly improve the guest experience. And that's what we do with our teams, and our general managers in the properties really, really embrace it and enjoy the process because they feel they get a lot out of an external assessor coming in and assessing the product and assessing the guest journey. And then I think the other thing is all about marketing, making sure when you do get that accreditation, when you pay for it, when you go the journey, make sure you're singing and dancing about it, because it does benefit you from a sales point of view. And the more and more we go into the corporate world, the more the agents and the corporate buyers are looking for this. So, I think you get what you put into it and what you take out of it.
Wonderful, thanks, Evelyn. I'll actually go round now the other way because it's been so unfair on you, Ali, that everybody has said things that. So over to you, and then we'll go backwards. Ali, Michelle, Steve.
Okay, thanks, Richard. Yeah, I think it is definitely what you make of it, and every year is different for us. Every year throws up something new that we hadn't thought about before, which is always really positive. Just to add, I'm not sure it's really been made clear, but it isn't just about the quality and comfort of the apartments themselves. It starts from the moment, from your booking process, really, which for us is not, it's not, it's fairly informal, really. We get a lot of direct as well as agency booking. So it's about how we deal with our guests from the very first point of contact, literally right up to after the stay, how we deal with saying goodbye to our guests and asking for reviews or feedback or so. So it is a very thorough end-to-end process. And I mean, it's been really important for us to help us grow as a company, to grow safely, because we do the safety compliance as well, but also to keep us where we need to be and to keep us on our toes. And yeah, I think Evelyn's right. It is an enjoyable process. And yeah, it needs to be backed more. I would say agents need to get on board with it. There needs to be parity across the whole sector, really, and I think probably government backed as well, to keep us on a level with some of the other platforms out there, and to shout about our sector, which is definitely, yeah, it's got so much about it. It's the best sector for hospitality, really, by far, in the long stay market. So yeah, that's our feedback on ISAAP.
Perfect. Thank you, Ali. Michelle.
The feedback I have is, first of all, I want to thank you, Stephen. The very first time we were involved in accreditation, it was, to say the least, brutal in North America, because it wasn't 100% applicable to how the North American model is set up. Again, most of us aren't set up in an entire building that we control. It is units or condominiums within a complex. So some of the questions that were originally asked, which took a lot of effort to answer because we weren't in control of the building, made it so daunting that I know some people in the past who looked at it said, forget it, I'm not doing it. And you've evolved into now a program that is so applicable and it's so pertinent, and it is exactly what our industry needs on this part of the world. And I know that must have taken a lot. I'm very grateful it doesn't take the same amount of paperwork that we were totally not in control of beforehand. And I know it is picking up steam here. I am grateful because the more of us that are on the accreditation, questions are being asked of, well, you're part of this, aren't you? You're accredited. And some are saying yes, and some are saying no. And I'm starting to hear that dialogue now, and that's exciting. So thank you for changing the program so it is now applicable to corporate housing in North America. And again, it's education and it's another tool. And, thank you. It's great.
Thank you, Michelle. Over to you, Steve.
Well, I think most things have been covered. There's really a question: is it coming home? And that is a way to wrap it up for you, I think.
Brilliant. Yeah, the answer to that is hopefully yes. But yeah, for reference to viewers, we're talking about football there coming home. Wonderful.
Yeah, no, it's been really good for our business, and yeah, as long as the accreditation continues to adapt to the changing nature of service departments, then it will continue to be relevant.
I mean, certainly, likewise, I rather, don't have an awful lot to add there, other than, before I hand over to Steve, other than to say, a lot of people, you see comments, is it just a badge? No one ever asks me, about accreditation. My argument with that is obviously not, is that it's accreditation logo, which means an awful lot behind it. And if nobody is asked about it, I think that the decisions are made perhaps before the guest arrives, and are being made by their agencies regarding where they actually ask for quotes for accommodation. So it's one of those invisible things sometimes that you don't actually appreciate how important it is in the process. What's gone on before that. But I will pass you on now to Steve, if I may, for some final words and thoughts, Steve.
Thanks, Richard. Interesting what you just said, you know, whether people are asking for it or not. I think anecdotally on this broadcast, all of the panelists have said that their companies are being asked for accreditation. So where people say no one ever asks, I think that's actually wrong. People are asking for it, and they're going to ask for it more so as the impact of ISO 31030 becomes realized through the industry sector. So just to round up, oh, and by the way, thank you, Michelle, for your kind words about North American product. I probably wouldn't have done it had you not made me do it through threats and other devices. So thank you very much for your prompting. I think in summary, I just I think I'd like to encourage all accommodation providers who currently do not have a certification or accreditation to ask themselves a few questions. And the first question should be, do we want to increase our business? So probably the answer should be yes. Do we think an ISAAP certification can help us to increase our business? And I think the evidence that we've heard by the panelists today suggests that they should be able to think that ISAAP can help them increase their business. So I would say the answers to those questions, if they are either yes or possibly or maybe or perhaps or don't know, all of those answers really qualify for the action to be making contact with ISAAP and starting a conversation. And you never know, it might end up with something beneficial. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Again, contact details at the bottom of the screen there. So please do contact Steve or myself, and I can pass on your details. At this stage, then I would like to thank you all on the panel. So Evelyn, Ali, Michelle, and the two Steves, for a discussion which I find fascinating. It's not an easy discussion to understand it, for me at least. So I hope it's been of interest and of benefit to the viewers. I'd like to thank the viewers who are live on the 3 channels, on LinkedIn, YouTube, and on Facebook, or on those, and to those who are viewing the recordings. So I'm now going to play the outro video. I would like to just thank everybody sincerely for your interest and for your participation. Here we go.